Hello everyone, welcome to another Modyo webinar. Today's topic will be continuous integration. In this webinar, we will show you how to integrate Modyo and GitHub. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Carlos Solis. I'm the product evangelist here at Modyo. In this session, I will show you how to integrate your current pipelines with Modyo CLI and GitHub. So we are gonna go ahead and jump into the webinar's agenda. First, I will show you how to set up a widget, all the details and configuration. Next, I will show you how to publish a widget using the local configuration. Then we jump into the GitHub integration, and finally, I will show you how to create an automation using GitHub Actions. Before we start working on the code, we need to set up a couple of things first. Let's go to Modyo and select Settings and click on API Access. Here you need to create a new API access. In case you don't have one already, click on New API Access, define a name, a small description, and select a redirect URI. You can use this one. We have defined it for local test. Click on Create, and I already have one here called Modyo CLI, as you can see, using the same settings. Now that we have the API access, we need to provide access to individual developers. So let's go to Team here on Settings, select a developer, go to API Access, click on New Access Token, and select the access token you already created, in this case, Modyo CLI. Click on Create Token, and as you can see, now we have a new token access. If you click on this eye icon, you can see the token. Remember to use your own token, otherwise you will not have access to the API. Each access is unique and designed to use for one specific developer. In case you need to remove the access, just click here and delete the access token. Now, before we go to the code, we need to check a couple of things just to make sure that your device has all the settings we need. Go to docs.modyo.com, and here you can find CLI, type CLI on the search, and you can find the settings you need for Modyo CLI. We will use these to upload your widgets to Modyo. In order to install it, first you need to have Node.js installed on your device, and then just run the code npm -i-g. That means it will install on global this CLI, and then just type @modyo/CLI. That will install the Modyo CLI on your system. If you need more information, remember that you can always find more details on documentation. Now we're ready to start working on the code. So let's go to Visual Studio Code. Here I have my project already open, and I just download this project from the Modyo repository. Let me show you the URL so you can download it as well. Here we have it on github.com, and you can find the Modyo community repositories, specifically on the GitHub Actions Automations repository. You can find more repositories related with the recent webinars we have here on the Modyo community, and as you can see, we have it, the GitHub Actions Automations repository already pinned. So let's go here, and here's the same code I have here in my local computer. So let's go back here, and you can find that I have a standard document in this case, I have this application running locally. As you may notice, it's a form where I can include a name, email, and some text, message. And let's pretend that we can submit that information to maybe an API, maybe a different web service. And basically we have this information that display a message that confirm that message was sent. Okay, let's go back to the code. So let's pretend that we already have this application ready and we want to upload it to Modyo. So we need to modify the configuration for this widget. To do so, we need to create a .env file. In this case, I already have one, and we need to include information for this. So we're going to use this information and fill this document with manual information. First, we need to verify the URL for your account. Where do you find this? Go to modyo.com and find your account. And in this case, I have this URL, which is advocate.modyo.com.cloud. Remember to use your account, otherwise it will not work. So in my case, I will use the URL, like I mentioned, advocate.modyo.com.cloud. Maybe in your case could be mydomain.com. Okay. Keep the Modyo version as 9. The Modyo token, as I mentioned, you can use this from the previous configuration we have. So remember to use your developer configuration. In this case, go to team, find the developer, API access, and copy the token that we just created. For the host, we need to define a specific host for where we want to publish this widget. So to do so, go to sites. Let's go to channels, sites, and select the site you want to work it. In this case, I have this site already created called webinar-ci. And as you may notice, I have the host name. I will use this value. And in this case, it could be different. Remember that depending on the configuration we have for the name of your site, it could be different. So remember to use the host value. Go to the configuration and include it here. Okay. Now let's go to widget name. In this case, we need to define a name. In my case, I just name it webinar CI 001 local. And finally, we need to define the build directory. You will find the build directory when you run the program that you're using. In my case, I am using Vite, but you can use other options. Just remember to run the build command, find on package.json. You will find the build command. In my case, it's in line 8. Just run the, let's go back to the code. npm run build. Click on enter, and you will notice that depending on your configuration will create a new folder. In my case, it's just the dest folder. Here, as I define it, here on the env. So now I have all the information I need to upload my widget to Modyo. So in this case, I know how to validate, how to authenticate my my information using the token. I know where to deploy to the host. I know the name of this widget, how to identify it on my environment, and finally where to get that information. Remember that when you run the build command, it will create an optimized version of your application. This is the version that will be uploaded and sent to Modyo. Now that we have all the information, all we need to do is follow the instructions. Let's go back to the documents. And here we have the push command. If we run the Modyo CLI push and the name of your widget, we have all the information we need. Just type Modyo CLI push and the name of your widget. In this case, this is the name, okay? Click on enter and this will upload your widget to Modyo. I already did so. So let's go to the site I already have. Click on widgets and here you will find the webinar 001 local, and you will find that this specific widget have the CLI tag. That means this widget has been created on a local computer and has been uploaded to Modyo. Remember that because we will need this information later. So far, this is the configuration. You need to publish all your widgets using the manual system. Let's see that in action before we move on. Okay, so let's go to pages now that we have the webinar CI 000 local, and before we need to make it available. So I need to click on there, click on publish. Once again. Now this widget, it's available to use it on our pages. Now let's go to pages and create a new page. Let's call it example. Make sure that you're using a widget page. Create. And as you can see, we are now available to use this custom widget. So let's click on it, save, and we're able to use it in a preview page. So click here. And here we have the widget now integrated with our page. So this is the manual process. Let's see how to automate this process. Now let's move this process, the same manual process we have, to the cloud. And in this case, we're going to run this process on GitHub. So let's go to GitHub and we need to set up a couple of things. First, go to settings. Select secrets and variables and click on actions. Here we're going to save the token we have from Modyo. So let's go to Modyo. Remember to select the token from one user. In this case, I select the user, click on API access, select the Modyo CLI, copy that value, and let's go back to GitHub and click on new repository secret. You can name it as you like, for example, API key, and here you can store the key for your token. Using this technique, you can store your key in a safety way and prevent that anyone else can access your key, not even storing it on your repository. That means we don't need anymore this token on your .env file. So I already have this secret stored, so I will not save it. As you can see, I already have it here. And I will move to my .env file and remove the token line. We will add this line later. Okay, now let's move to GitHub and we need to create a GitHub action. So go to actions and click on new workflow. And to create a workflow from scratch, click on set up a workflow yourself. And here you can start working on your GitHub action. I already have one created, so let's move to this one. I have it in here. And let me show you the code. Here we have a couple of blocks that we need to run our automation on GitHub action. First, we need to name it and define the trigger events. For example, in this case, I have two different trigger events. The first one is the workflow dispatch, and the second one is whenever you send a push to a specific branch, in this case main. You can name it whatever you want, or to any specific name or any specific branch that you may need. For example, here, since I defined the workflow dispatch, it is possible that anytime I click on my specific workflow, I can just select the run workflow and select the branch and run my workflow at any time I want. Okay? I can also trigger this action every time the code is pushed to this specific branch, in this case, the main branch. Okay? Now, the next block is to create the virtual machine that we're gonna run on GitHub. In this case, we will use Node and select one specific version to have this running on GitHub. The next step is to set up this virtual machine. For example, here, I just run the npm install to install dependencies for my widget. Next, the Modyo CLI. I will need this to deploy my code to Modyo, and then the npm run to compile my code and have it ready to deploy. Next step is to include the token line. In this case, as you can see, we're just touching the .env file, include a new line, and here we're using a variable just to include the API key. This will include the same line that we just removed from the .env file. The only difference is that this will be added programmatically at the end of the code. Okay? You can include any other variable and use keys from the secrets in GitHub as you may like. Okay? And the final process is to push. Here we run the same process that we run on the local machine using the Modyo CLI version, the command push, and finally including a name. In this case, I changed the name to dev-modyo-demo just to make sure that we can identify this application. Okay, so now that we have the GitHub action, we just need to save it and we're ready to run it. In case you need it, remember that we have this action already available on our repository. So let's go back to the code and pretend that I need to include a new change on my code. So as we may see, we have this form already made that we have running on the application. And let's pretend that I need to change the code. And instead of message send, I need to include here a message that says new message send. Okay, this is the change I need. I save it. And just to show you how we can integrate the current pipelines that you may have. For example, here you can run your unit testing, your end-to-end testing, any other test, any other process that you may need. And let's pretend that you developers are ready to deploy. For example, here, instead of running the Modyo CLI, I will just commit my code to my repository. In this case, I am using the main branch. And remember that the action will be triggered anytime that someone just push a code there. So in this case, let me show you. I will add this code using a standard git command, then include a commit. For example, here, let's say that this is a demo, a continuous integration demo. Enter, and here we send to the origin using the git push origin, in this case to the main branch. That will send my code to GitHub, specifically to my current branch. And if we see here, let's go back to the latest commits. Here is the commit I just sent. Let's check GitHub Actions. And as you can see, the action is already running. If we open it, we can see that we have here details. Right now it's installing dependencies and running the code. And in the meantime, let's go to Modyo. And here on my page, right now we have just widget. And as you can see, the widget is just deployed. Let's go back to Modyo. And if we check the actions, we can see that we have a green ticket. That means the action, it's run properly and deployed to our application. And now we can use it. How we can use it? Just click here. Remember to publish it. This will make the widget available. Go to a page. Here an example. I will remove the local version. And we have now the dev version. We have just compiled using GitHub Actions. Save. And if we click on preview, send a message, for example here, name, email at email.com, and test message. Click on submit, and here we have the changes using the code that we just deployed using GitHub Actions and the integrations we have with Modyo CLI. That's pretty much it for this webinar. I hope that it's very useful for you. I hope that you like it. And remember that in any case that you may need information, we have this site called docs.modyo.com where you can find more information to deep dive on the CLI. And also you can use the help.modyo.com to find more webinars like this one that you will find here on the recording, so you can check it again. Thank you very much for your time. My name is Carlos Solis, and I hope to see you in next webinar.